Welcome to Hidden Reason. In today's Explainer, we're diving into an absolute mammoth of modern filmmaking. We're talking about Christopher Nolan's cinematic adaptation of Homer's ancient epic, The Odyssey. But we aren't just here to talk about the story on screen. We're going to uncover the historic, honestly mind-boggling technical milestones required to actually capture this thing. The production of this film pushed the boundaries of analog technology to their absolute breaking point. It required custom engineering, unbelievable physical endurance, and a relentless commitment to massive practical scaling. So let's jump right in and see exactly how they engineered the impossible. To really understand the scale of what they accomplished, you have to look at the film itself. When you compare a standard 35mm frame, which is, the traditional gold standard for cinema, against a colossal IMAX 1570mm negative, the size difference is just staggering. It's massive. Now, why go through all the trouble to use something so big? Well, because this massive format captures up to 3 times more image detail than modern digital cinema cameras. According to Christopher Nolan, this celluloid film is the closest technological equivalent we have to how the human eye actually perceives color, light, and contrast. It is the ultimate image. But as you'll see, getting that image comes at an immense physical cost.
Part 1. The impossible camera. So normally, directors will use IMAX film for very specific, isolated sequences, right? Like a crazy bank heist or a nuclear test. But The Odyssey holds a pretty unique place in history because it is the very first feature film shot entirely, 100% on IMAX film cameras. Undertaking a 3-hour epic completely in this format was basically considered a technical impossibility, mostly just due to the sheer mechanics of the camera itself. To put the pressure on set into perspective, think about the number 3. That is the maximum number of minutes of continuous filming the crew could get before totally running out of film. Each of these giant rolls of 70mm film only allows for about 2.5 to 3 minutes of shooting. Just imagine the rhythm of that set. For every complex, massive sequence with hundreds of actors, the director and the crew were constantly racing against a literal ticking clock before frantically having to yell cut and reload those massive magazines. And look, if a 3-minute time limit wasn't stressful enough, there was the noise. When 70mm film is pulled through a camera gate at high speeds, an IMAX camera sounds a lot more like a small jet engine than a recording device. Trying to capture usable, quiet dialogue on set was nearly impossible. To solve this, the engineering team had to build a custom sound-reducing housing called a blimp to muffle that mechanical roar. Matt Damon actually noted that this blimp was roughly the size of a coffin. It weighed over 300 pounds when fully assembled. The crew literally had to build special steel plating on the camera dollies just to support its sheer weight.
Part 2, the mirror solution.
Well, fixing that audio problem immediately created a massive visual problem. That 300-pound sound-reducing blimp was so bulky that it completely blocked the actors' sightlines during close-up scenes. If the actors looked at each other, they weren't looking anywhere near the lens. But if they looked at the lens, they couldn't see their scene partner at all. Intimate face-to-face acting became geometrically impossible. But instead of trying to physically wedge this giant camera between the actors, the engineering and cinematography teams came up with a brilliant workaround. They placed carefully angled mirrors directly between the actors. The cast would look right into the mirrors, which perfectly reflected their faces back into the IMAX lens. It was a total game changer. This allowed the camera to capture faces from a much closer, more intimate angle than had ever been achieved in the IMAX format before, all without breaking the actors' connection to one another.
Part 3, real locations, real scale. Now, Nolan's commitment to capturing the highest quality image naturally extended to what was actually being placed in front of that lens. Rather than just relying on digital backlots, this production traveled to real global locations, from the glaciers of Iceland and the highlands of Scotland to the ruins of Greece, the coast of Italy, and the sweeping beaches of Morocco. And it was in Morocco where the practical scale of this film truly came to life. The production team constructed a full-scale, practical wooden Trojan horse. No miniatures, no digital placeholders. This was a massive physical structure. It was so immense that Nolan, his cinematographer, Hoyt van Hoytema, that huge IMAX camera, and roughly 25 actors were physically locked inside of it for hours at a time, just to capture the tense, claustrophobic reality of the Greek soldiers waiting to strike. And when they finally burst out of that horse for the sacking of Troy, they were stepping into a practical war zone. The production utilized anywhere between 500 to 700 extras for this sequence. To safely illuminate and engulf the city in flames for the cameras, the pyrotechnicians developed a highly controlled fire brigade system. They rigged up these special effects trees that could be ignited and extinguished
instantly. They were literally turning roaring fires on and off like a tap. It let them capture all that terrifying chaos incredibly safely directly in camera. But, visual scale is really only half the battle. To match the pulse-pounding tension of hundreds of soldiers storming a burning city, composer Ludwig Göransson utilized a fascinating technique known as a reset rhythm. This is an auditory illusion, basically the rhythmic equivalent of a shepherd tone. It creates this wild sensation of continuous, unending acceleration. As the music loops, your brain thinks it's constantly getting faster and faster, which deeply amplifies the anxiety and tension of the practical visuals exploding on that massive screen. Part 4. The Analog Lab. Once that incredibly grueling physical shoot wrapped up, the monumental analog effort shifted right over to post-production. In an era totally dominated by digital workflows, AI, and instant computer editing, The Odyssey remained fiercely loyal to physical media. The team set up shop at Photochem in Burbank, California, which happens to be the very last motion picture film lab in the world that still produces 70mm prints. Instead of scrubbing a digital timeline on a computer monitor, editing this massive negative was a highly tactile physical process. A negative assembly technician physically cut the 70mm film strips by hand. Using a traditional glue pot, they carefully applied adhesive to the edges, joining the strips together flawlessly. Every single cut in this 3-hour film, which amounts to thousands of individual edits, was meticulously assembled by hand. And that dedication to the analog process went all the way down to the film's final color timing. Actually, scratch that, you can't even call it color grading. The meticulous nature of this is truly awe-inspiring. A lab timer would take test prints and place them onto a physical light table. Then they manually held up pieces of colored glass, cyan, magenta, yellow, right over the frames to adjust the look. Once they found the perfect physical filter combination, they assigned numerical values to each shot. Those specific values were then programmed into a huge contact printer, which projected perfectly colored light through the negative to bake the final colors right onto the theatrical release prints. So, through incredibly heavy 300-pound cameras, terrifying 3-minute time limits, complex mirror rigs, and thousands of hand-glued splices, this production proved something vital. It proved that the massive analog negative still holds an incredibly powerful, irreplaceable role in modern storytelling. It's a genuine epic feat of engineering that ultimately preserves the pure, communal magic of cinema for a whole new generation. So, what lengths would you go to for the perfect image? Think about that next time the lights go down in the theater. Subscribe for more hidden stories.